What's up, guys? Welcome to an ER 100 episode, and today I'm about to talk about how to manage your company during turmoil, okay? Now, this is why I'm making this video. As always, I make my videos based on experience, and this is probably one of the most key things that I've been able to learn in 2019, which is basically managing a company during turmoil. Now, in this video, I'm actually going to be breaking things down in 3 key steps, okay? So the first step is going to be how to manage your company during peacetime and how to manage it during the time of rumors of battle, or basically when you're starting to notice your company. It's about it basically entering into turmoil. You notice some things a little bit uneasy, so basically that's kind of the rumors of battle or rumors of war, whatever you want to call it. And then number 3, finally, when you're actually in the battle itself, when you're going through those turmoils. Now, before we even dive into this video, the one thing I've been able to notice in my short time of kind of pushing hard in entrepreneurship is basically your company will be going through this kind of phases over and over again, right? You'll never really have a time where you're going to have completely peace, or you're going to have a time where it's going to be completely turmoil, okay? Because if you're having complete turmoil all the time, basically means your company is going to be dead, okay? So it won't even be there to go during the peacetime. So that's why it's very important and very healthy for your company to actually go through all the 3 key phases that I'm about to break down, or just like I kind of broke down, and basically how do you able to manage during those times and periods. Now, the biggest thing is what's happening during your peacetime. Your peacetime is probably the most crucial time ever for your company, because that's the time where you actually are going to be preparing yourself like as if you are in battle already. So that's a big mistake that I personally made when one of the companies I was working on was basically going through a good 9 months of peace, great months, no problems. It's growing every month, and we're hitting all our numbers, and there's really nothing wrong. And basically what I did during that time was, of course, I was still working on improving the software and the technology, but of course I wasn't focused too much on the key aspect of the services and the quality of service we're delivering to our customers. And that's really where it's very crucial. And the mistake that I made was that I did not improve that section, or I really did not think about what would happen if this and that does not work, what happens if this and those numbers are not hitting where they need to hit to. So when you're going through peacetime, it's actually when you're really starting to build your arsenal for war, because when you're going through turmoil, it's very hard for you to build your arsenal during that time, because you're going to be panicking, trying to defend yourself off from all the different attacks that are coming in, and at the same trying to keep all the peace within your own kind of nation, I should say, your own company, and then also at the same time trying to just make sure that you stay afloat as a leader. So that's why it's very key for you during the peacetime. You're actually focused on how can you be able to improve your services, how can you be able to get your services to even be better. And it's kind of what I've been able to find, right? So the first thing is go over what's working right now and basically double down on that. If you notice certain metrics are really working very well, double down on them exactly at that moment. Do not wait to say, we're going to wait until when we're basically going through tough times, then we can double down investments on that one area. You want to double down investments on that one area that's working very well, because guess what's going to happen? It's going to give you better returns at that exact moment, or at least increase your, your sales, whatever it might be, your ROI. And at the same time, when you go through a difficult time, your sales are not going to get hurt as much, because guess what? You already have that kind of layer of thick skin, or basically there are defenses that are already ready for you. Now, the other key thing is during peacetime is also think about your employees, right? I didn't really think too much about this core part. I was basically almost thinking like, hey, the employees are doing very well and they're always going to just do very well. Well, guess what? They're still human beings, as we all are, and we're going to be kind of drawn to errors, or maybe some people might be drawn into other passions, and then I might not be performing at the caliber you want to perform in your company, or maybe they end up moving to something else, which is perfectly fine. The thing that you need to do as a leader, or as the CEO of your own company, or whatever you might be in the company, CFO, whatever it is, CEO, or whatever, managing or director, is you need to constantly be thinking about hiring people. It's a big mistake that I made. You have to be constantly hiring, okay? Because if you look at most companies, they usually always have their careers page and whatever forms always wide open, like all the time. They're never really saying no to people. The biggest thing is this: you're not necessarily having to hire people exactly at that moment, but if you can be able to create a list or portfolio of at least, maybe let's say for every 1 employee you maybe have 4 other people who you believe are able to perform at the same caliber, or if not better, if you needed them to come in. Now, this is the thing that you need to do. If your company is able to basically have people quote unquote on call, or basically on your emergency line, like basically have them go through the entire training process of your company, go through every cycle your company needs for them to become full-time employees, and just basically have those people always on call. Because what will happen is sometimes you might have an employee who's been performing very well for 9 months, I'm talking this from experience, and basically they end up not really performing too well for a while, and it really affects your company drastically, especially when you're a small startup. That's very, very key. So that's another key thing you want to make sure you have in there, right? So number 1, double down on your sales during peacetime. Number 2, make sure you're constantly hiring, make sure you're constantly building up your arsenal as far as employees. And then the final step is going to be basically optimize every cent, and I literally mean every single cent you're earning, optimize on it. Think about how you can maximize your ROI currently. If you have a company that's doing very good in sales right now, you're doing great numbers, you're hitting your number targets very well, there's always room for you to cut down your expenses and increase your returns. There's always room for that. If you're not thinking about how to do that, then guess what's gonna happen when it comes time to rumors of war? You're gonna start panicking during those time periods, and when you want to get into war in your company, it's gonna be very hard for you to optimize things because you're gonna be entering some few things I'll talk about when you enter into a panic mindset and what that does to your company, okay? So during peacetime is actually the most crucial time because you're building up your arsenal, and also at the same time it's very peaceful, so that means you really have a lot more time and you're a little bit more patient to be able to build up your arsenal as far as your employees, as far as improving your services, and being able to really calmly be able to just kind of make sure you're preparing for all the different things that can happen in all the different scenarios, okay? So that's what you want to do during peacetime, okay? Now, rumors of war is basically the second step, right? It's basically when you are starting to notice that, hey, my sales are declining, or you're noticing your industry is going through a turmoil, or you're noticing basically any kind of things that can happen, right? So for example, the recent Trump, China trade war with the US has affected a few industries out there, agriculture and of course steel, manufacturing, and other large imports. And of course, if you're in the stock market, whatever you might be in the Forex market, it does affect your different sales and stuff like that. So there might not be regulations like those ones directly to you, but there are gonna be regulations that governments are gonna pass that will definitely affect your company. I've already kind of gone through this when Google passed a few regulations on advertising that affected me for like 3 months, and I was kind of in a panic zone. But now I've been able to kind of see how I can be able to diversify things better. So during rumors of war is basically when you're starting to see your company is kind of starting to have those constraints coming in, is basically the time you need to be able to start preparing for war. Start preparing for the worst case scenario, because guess what? Worst case scenarios can happen. Now, rumors of war does not mean that your company will actually start to struggle or enter into a full-out turmoil. It's just rumors. And basically when those rumors start happening, the mistake I made is I ignored them. I basically was like, it's just a bunch of rumors, or maybe it's that it's not really affecting me too much. It's just a slight decline. We can be able to get back up after this. But what you want to do as a leader is basically any kind of information or any kind of anything that really comes your way that's showing your company is going to be going through a struggle, you need to act on it. You need to at least be very much aware about what's happening. You don't have to just go into a crazy panic mode to try and solve everything here and there, but basically be very, very aware on what's happening during that time period. That's the time period where you basically start saying, hey, you know how those employees that we trained in who can be able to help us when things are going a little bit crazy here and there, or maybe people are not performing the way they need to be performed in their job. That's when you start having those people. Just make sure that those people are still there and are ready when they're needed to be called in. It's the same thing when countries are getting ready to go to war, or there are rumors of war. That's when they actually start saying like, hey, how many troops do we have? How much ammunition do we have? How much of this do we have? Are we really going to be ready if anything happens? So rumors of war is basically you just making sure the things you're doing during peacetime are going to be ready for you if you do end up entering into a turmoil. The basic rumors of war, there's not really too many steps in there other than basically be very aware about what's happening around you, be very aware about your surroundings, okay? Now, the next third part is basically when you are in a turmoil. Now, the reason why the steps that I've been going over are very crucial is because many companies that have gone under, basically, if you look at during the whole dot-com boom and the whole different things that have been happening, there's a lot of multi-billion-dollar companies who have been there for like 20 years, 30 years. Like for example, Toys R Us went under because Amazon was able to basically take over their industry. Now, if for example, Toys R Us was basically constantly thinking about how can we be able to improve? What is the next place they're going to be happening? And of course, e-commerce was where sales were going to go next. Now, they didn't have to like basically shut down all their brick and mortar stores, right? They basically had to be like, hey, let's start getting some personnel who are very much experienced in e-commerce, and let's start building an e-commerce department within our own company, so that if when there are rumors of war where basically everyone is going e-commerce, we can be able to start getting things moving at a faster pace. And guess what? When we start noticing brick and mortar are going down, let's just basically shift all our sales back to what? Online, into the next level of movement. Now, here's the thing about when it's happening when you go into war for your company. It might not be as drastic as you going from being a brick and mortar to an e-commerce, but definitely there's going to be a shift in the market during your next 10 years, next 5 years of running your company, where things are going to change. Now, for some people, it might be unfortunate they enter during a time period when things are literally changing at that time period. They just finally got their things down. You still have to be very much prepared for you to be able to put things into into action. Now for me, for example, I'll give you my personal experience. Basically for me is the technology and software we've built is working phenomenally very well. But we do rely on employees being at the top performance for us to be able to deliver the best services to our clients. The mistake that I made was basically I never really thought about how can I be able to solve a problem where if a person is performing really badly and we need to replace them, or maybe to be able to supplement them during a difficult time period. Now for your company, what can be able to happen is this, right? So like for example, if you know your company performs very well during a certain X time and period in the market, like for example, if your company is quote unquote selling jackets, then you need to find something you want to sell for the summer, right? You're basically complementing those two weaknesses with other strengths during other different time periods. Now, for example, when you're working with employees, there's a reason why people usually have time off, or people don't work 24/7, they'll get burnt out. So usually companies end up rotating people to work different shifts, different time periods, and etc. And also companies in general usually know that if it's during the summer, there's just a certain class of people who are going to be working at a higher caliber compared to people who might maybe love winter, like skating or outdoor sports. You might end up having those people work during the summer more. Basically, it's just basically looking at your industry. I'm just making that part up right there, but basically look at your industry and trying to see what works well during an X time period and what does not work well during another time period. Now, the reason why this is very key, this is basically called seasonal battles, okay? Seasonal battles are something you're always going to expect is going to happen, like regardless, right? It might not be something drastic as going from a brick and mortar to an e-commerce, but it might be something where you see it happen every once a year or every 2 years, right? You want to prepare for those seasonal changes. Now, the other very large seasonal changes is basically when the markets or the economy is doing bad. Now, this does not happen every year. It happens every so often. You can be able to go see like the 2008 market crash, maybe the dot-com crash, and etc. And you want to be able to see what can you be able to do during those industries and times. Go study companies in your industry and see what they did to survive during those times, and see what those companies that went under, what they did wrong, and where you can be able to prevent yourself. Now, those are different things you can be able to use historical information to predict what's going to happen in the future, which is very good for you to use. Now, there's going to be things that are going to be unpredicted battles or unpredicted wars. And that's why it's very crucial for you during the peacetime. You're constantly innovating, you're constantly thinking about how to improve your services, you're constantly thinking about how to grow your company, regardless of you even doing very well right now, regardless of you doing 10 times better than what you're supposed to do in your performance and sales, regardless, okay? If you're doing 10x what you're supposed to be doing, then do 20x of that, do 40x, do 50x. Constantly keep pushing and constantly keep growing, because at the end of the day, it's much more, as they usually say, right? If you're preparing for an exam or something, it's better for you to overstudy and over prepare than be able to basically not be prepared at all. Because guess what? If an opportunity comes up during that turmoil and you end up rising out as the victorious company, you'll be able to even get a larger market share. This has happened very often during the like for example the the 2008 market crash. For example, Warren Buffett was able to pick up on a lot of different companies, very cheap shares, because guess what? He already had a lot of cash stockpiled for something like that to happen. So for his hedge fund, he was waiting for that to happen. He knew it was going to happen, and he was able to come out of a very difficult time period of the market in the basic human history and be able to rise out victorious. It's the same thing for you and your company. How can you be able to know when a battle comes, when a war comes, you can be able to still rise victorious? All right, that's all I have for you guys today on the ER100 episode. And another thing I basically just want to say is that this is very, very crucial, because I feel like if you're able to kind of understand how to go through the whole 3 sections I just basically went over, you'll be able to avoid a very, very key thing, and that is panic. You do not want to panic when you're going during a turmoil. You do not want to panic, because when you panic, especially as a leader, guess what's going to happen? Everyone else in your company is going to be panicking. A leader should not really be panicking, should always be prepared, or as prepared as you can be. There's nothing wrong to be afraid. There's nothing wrong to be fearful of what's going to happen, but there's a difference between afraid or being fearful and difference between panicking. Panicking is basically you are looking everywhere like crazy, just throwing money at anything and thinking it's going to solve your problem. But you basically preparing yourself for knowing a turmoil is going to happen. When you're having a turmoil, it's still going to be fearful. You're still going to be afraid because you don't know what the future holds. But you already have countermeasures that are going to be able to help you to navigate during those times. But if you do not have those countermeasures, you're going to end up panicking. For example, when a person is drowning, they're not supposed to be flattening their hands everywhere around. They're actually gonna drown even more. Or even when a person is actually trying to save them, they're gonna end up taking the person who's trying to save them under as well. So that's why you do not want to panic. You want to stay calm. Because even when a person is drowning, yes, they're afraid, yes, they're fearful, but their lifeguard is trying to save them, and they start kicking and punching everywhere, they might end up knocking out the lifeguard, and then they end up both drowning and not being saved. Do you get what I'm trying to say here? That's why it's very crucial for you to basically not panic, which is the mistake I made. And when you panic as an entrepreneur, you're gonna not only lose a lot of money, because you're gonna be basically trying to think that whatever you're throwing money at is gonna solve the problem, which most of the time it does not. But most of the time you're gonna be panicking, you're gonna lose money, you're gonna lose time, and you're gonna be able to basically kind of enter into a shell mode where you think things are not going to basically pan out, right? As an entrepreneur, you should already know you cannot really fully 100% have everything under control, but whatever it is that you can control is very crucial. And that's basically how you manage your time, how you manage your finances, how you manage your employees, how you're able to properly navigate through rough waters, as in sometimes things do get pretty bad, you go under, but you can still be able to come back stronger as long as you make sure that when you are going through those turmoils, you're learning something and you're gaining ground and learning from them. I'm very fortunate that I was able to learn from this and quickly start turning things around. But sometimes people do not get their head out of that panic zone, and they basically end up crashing their ship, and then they never know why they crashed in the first place. That's why it's very important for you that when you even are preparing for all the different things, no matter what the outcome might be, you might lose some battles, you might win some battles, but if you learn from each and every battle that you go through, then you will forever keep improving. All right, thanks for watching this episode of ER 100. I'll see you in another episode. Peace out.